Namaskar. Welcome to this video lecture. The topic of this lecture is human rights reporting. The definitions of human rights, the different concepts, the different theories, the legal and constitutional frameworks for human rights or status of human rights at national and international level. These issues have been discussed in separate lectures. So, in this lecture, we will focus directly on human rights reporting. First of all, we will see the objectives of this lecture. After watching this video, you will be able to understand human rights reporting. It means what is human rights reporting? You will be able to answer this question. Then explain the importance of human rights reporting. Why is human rights reporting important for the society? Then the third is enumerate the different sources of human rights stories. And fourth is describe the challenges of human rights reporting. While doing human rights reporting, what type of challenges you will have to face, those challenges we will discuss. When we talk about the news media is considered as a promoter of human rights. It's a responsibility of news media to create awareness, to create human rights literacy, to promote the human rights in our society. And the second role in the context of human rights of news media is indirect protector of human rights. News media is considered as indirect protector of human rights. The direct protectors are the courts and the other legal authorities, but news media can play important role to protect human rights indirectly. We will discuss both these roles in coming slides. Now, human rights reporting. What is human rights reporting? When a reporter report human rights related issues, that is called human rights reporting. Human rights reporting can be done for different news media. That can be newspaper, that can be television, that can be radio, or that can be the news websites also. We can classify the activities covered in human rights reporting in two categories. The first is reporting human rights violations. This portion is quite crucial also. And the second is other human rights related activities. Other human rights related activities includes the various activities of different official organizations of human rights, like in our country we have a human rights commission at national level, we have state human rights commissions also, and there are UN level human rights organizations also. The different countries have different official human rights organization also. So, the activities of those human rights related organizations, that can be their seminar and conferences, that can be their human rights literacy related campaigns, that can be human rights related workshops and trainings. So, those issues and those activities can also be reported and should also be reported in news media to create the awareness, to make our society aware of the human rights related issues. So, human rights reporting can be classified into two categories. First, reporting human rights violation, and second, reporting other human rights related activities. Now, we will discuss human rights violations in detail, because human rights violations are the major concern for the news media, and you will find a lot of news reports on human rights violation in newspaper, television, radio or news websites. There are many human rights violations, many, but here we will see some common human rights violations which are classified by the National Human Rights Commission, India. The first is custodial death, second, unlawful detention, third, custodial violence, fourth, illegal arrest, fifth, encounter deaths. You must have seen many stories related to encounter deaths in news media. Then atrocities on scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, then bonded labor, child labor, then child marriage, then communal violence, harassment of prisoners and adverse living conditions in jail. We must understand as a aware citizen that even the prisoners, even the criminals have their human rights, because human rights are the rights which are available to us just being a human. If we are a human being, we have those rights. So the human rights of prisoners and the people who are in jails should also be protected. That is the requirement for a civilized society. Then dowry death or its attempt, dowry demand, abduction, rape and murder, sexual harassment and indignity to women, exploitation of women, and failure of police in filing an FIR. If a citizen, if a poor person, if a common man wants to file an FIR against someone or against some issues or against some criminal things happen to him or her, then it's a responsibility of police to file an FIR. And if he or she is facing problem in filing the FIR, it's also considered as the violation of human rights. So here these are few examples. If we will include all the examples of human rights violation, it will be difficult. The list will be very long. But here we have seen few common human rights violations classified by National Human Rights Commission India. Now, human rights reporting. Human rights involve questions of law, morality and political philosophy. So human rights reporting overlaps many other fields of reporting, or we can say many other fields of reporting overlaps human rights reporting. Here in this diagram you can see that crime reporting overlaps human rights reporting. In previous slide we have seen that many human rights violations are coming under the area of crime reporting. That's why crime reporting overlaps human rights reporting. You can also see there is a overlapping between human rights reporting and legal reportings. Many human rights violation cases are pending or running in the different courts. So the legal reporting also overlaps human rights reporting. The third is political reporting. See, human rights is used as a tool in international politics. You must have seen many cases where two rival countries are blaming each other for human rights violation. Like if there is a country A and country B and they are not sharing good relationship between them and they are the rival countries, country A will blame country B for human rights violation of different communities of a certain section, and the same thing is done by country B also. So it's a blame game related to human rights in international politics. Many countries have included human rights as an important aspect for their diplomatic relations, for their international relations. So political reporting also overlaps to some extent the human rights reporting. This diagram shows the importance of human rights reporting. Why is human rights reporting important for the society? What is the role of human rights reporting in protection of human rights? Here you can see there is a violator. Violator is always powerful. That's why he or she can violate or it can violate the human rights of others. The second is victim, and there is occurrence of human rights violation. Okay? That occurrence or incident is observed by the reporter. Reporter files his or her report to the organization. Here the word editor represents the editorial department of any news organization. It may be newspaper, television channel, website or radio also. So all the items, we all know that all the reports, all the news stories sent by the reporter is not getting space or time in the news media, in the newspaper, in the news channel, in the news website. because there is a process of filtration, there is a process of gatekeeping, and the editorial department decides which item, what news stories will be published or will be aired. That is the decision of editorial department. Reporter is working on the ground, and the editorial department sitting at headquarters, they are taking decision, they are selecting the news item, they are taking decision on the selection and presentation of news item. There may be some gap because reporter is reporting from the ground, and editorial department sitting at the headquarters, they are taking decision about the news stories or news reports. But this is the reality of a news channel, of a newspaper, that there is a process of gatekeeping. Once that news story of the violation reaches to public, it will reach to the authorities also. Those authorities may be at national level or may be at international level. We all know that there are international bodies also, UN related bodies, and human rights bodies of different other countries also. The information about the violation reaches to public and reaches to authorities through the media, through the news media, and the authorities at national and international level may take action against that violation, because those authorities are getting information from news media, as well as if after watching that story, if public is feeling anger, there is a public opinion, there is a public pressure, that pressure also influences the authorities at national and international level. So the final action of authorities are influenced by the public pressure or the information directly received from the news media, and there will be action on violator. And in ideal situation, in ideal condition, it is expected that the human rights violation in this particular case will stop. So this whole cycle, this whole diagram explains the role of human rights reporter in protection of human rights in any society. That's why we discussed earlier that news media is considered as the indirect protector of human rights. Here, news media is not the direct protector. Direct protector is the law and other legal authorities. But reporter and news media can play an important role as an indirect protector of human rights in this society. Sources are important in any type of reporting. Here we will see some important sources of the human rights news or human rights stories. First is victims. Second, maybe eyewitnesses may also be the one of the source of human rights news. Third, maybe NGOs. Many NGOs are involved in human rights related activities. They are involved in human rights literacy campaign. They are involved in providing help to the victims. They are involved in the creating awareness about the human rights in this society. So those NGOs can also be a very vital source of the human rights related news. Next may be news agencies. News agencies, if we talk about the news agencies, they are the provider of news reports or news stories, especially from the foreign countries. We are dependent on them, and we are dependent on them for the news reports coming from our country also, because news agencies have a very vast and good network of reporters. It's not possible for all the media organizations, newspapers, TV channels to have that type of network of reporters even in the country, forget about the whole world. Okay? And especially the small newspapers, small television channels, regional level television channels, they are highly dependent on the news agencies. So news agencies can be considered as an important source of human rights related news. Next may be different bodies related to weaker sections. Different bodies related to weaker section. But before this source, I want to discuss about the official human rights organization. There are many official human rights organizations. We discussed in the previous slide that National Human Rights Commission in our country, then we have state human rights commissions, then we have UN level human rights organizations, then we have official human rights organizations in different other countries. So these organizations can also be a very strong source of human rights related news. They are publishing their annual reports also, from where we can get data about the violations and other activities also, and that can be the source of a good databased news report on human rights. So these official human rights organizations can also be a very good and important source of human rights related news. Then different bodies related to weaker sections. There are different bodies available, official bodies available to protect the rights of the weaker sections. So like we have Commission for Women, we have Commission for Scheduled Caste, we have Commission for Scheduled Tribes, we have Commission for OBC, we have Commission for Disabled, we have Commission for child, we have Commission for minorities also. So these bodies who are related to different weaker sections of the society can also be an important source of news related to human rights, because human rights include all the rights of these weaker sections also. And if you will see the structure of human rights, National Human Rights Commission, you will find the chairman of these bodies as a member in our National Human Rights Commission of India. Then next is citizen journalists, very important. Nowadays we know every hand has a camera, and that camera can be used to click pictures, to shoot video. Anybody can click pictures and shoot video. And just take an example that you are passing through a street and you saw some human rights violation activities, you can click picture and you can send it to the different news media. So citizen journalists are also very important source of human rights news stories. Then last is social media, very important. Nowadays you may find many pictures, many videos viral on the social media. Many of them may be fake also, but many of them are genuine also. And the mainstream media can take those pictures, can take those videos as a lead, and they can go for the further investigation and they can have a good news story on human rights. So social media is also considered as a very potential, very important source of human rights related stories. And the last is human rights activists. You can find many human rights activists. They may be the lawyers, they may be the social workers, they may be the students also, they may be the teachers also. These activists are involved in different human rights related activities, in awareness campaign, in human rights literacy campaigns, in training, workshops, seminars, symposium, providing legal aids to the victims also. So these human rights activists can be very important source of human rights related news. So as a human rights reporter, you should consider these sources as potential and important sources for your stories. Now we will discuss challenges of human rights. When you are reporting human rights related issues, what type of challenges you may face? What types of challenges will come in your way, in your path to perform your duties as a human rights reporter? The first challenge is pressure and threats from human rights violators. Violators are powerful. We all know that human rights violators are always powerful. They may be an individual, they may be a big corporate company, they may be a terrorist group, they may be mafia, or they may be state agencies also. But in all cases, they are powerful. They are powerful, that's why they are able to violate the rights of others, other weaker people. So, when you will report the human right violations, you will face the pressure and threats coming from the human rights violators. That is the challenge for human rights reporting. The second challenge is lack of protection. We are expecting a lot from the journalists. We are expecting from them that they should, reveal, they should expose the bad action, the wrongdoings of the society. But we are not providing them any special legal protection for doing their duties. But there is an exception, and that is the Maharashtra Media Persons and Media Institutions Prevention of Violence and Damage or Loss to Property Act 2017. This is the first law in our country, in India, and Maharashtra is the first state which gave a special legal protection to the journalists. This act, this bill got clearance from the President of India in 2019 and now it is applicable. So, after this Maharashtra bill, Maharashtra Act, many other states are also considering on the similar lines to provide a protection, a proper protection to the journalists. Then the second issue is source of right. What is the source of right for a reporter, for a journalist? And that right is freedom of speech and expression 19(1)(a). It is an article of Indian Constitution which provides freedom of speech and expression to all the citizens, and journalists are getting their rights from this article only. So, there is no separate provision, there is no separate source of right for journalists to reveal or to expose the wrongdoings of the society. Then third is bias. It is also very important because reporters are also human beings and the bias can be individual and institutional. Being a human being, the reporter may have bias against certain community or certain section of the society, and the whole institution, the whole media organization can have also the bias against certain section of the society or certain community. And in this case, if the human rights of that particular community will be violated, the reporting of those issues may be impacted due to this bias. So, bias is also a big challenge in human rights reporting. Then next challenge is objectivity versus national interest. Objectivity is one of the basic principles of journalism. Journalists are citizens also, and dilemma in conflict zones or war zones. So, we all know that objectivity is one of the basic principles of journalism, but it is also true that reporters are citizens also. And especially in the case of conflict zones and war zones, as a reporter you may face dilemma between objectivity and national interest, because human rights violations are quite common in conflict zones and war zones, and many a times state agencies may also be involved in that. In that case, the dilemma between objectivity and national interest is quite natural, but this is also a challenge of human rights reporting. Difficult to get direct access to the incident. Generally, human rights violation cases happened in remote areas or even in the urban areas. The violators want to hide that. So, it is difficult to get access to the incident, direct access. Then highly commercialized media. Race of TRP, circulation and views decides the main criteria for selection of news. Business interest of the owners. Many human rights issues related to farmers, tribes, children, women and other weaker sections may be ignored. So, we all know that the private media is highly commercialized. Their main objective is profit making and maximize the profit. So, race of TRP may create problem for the human rights reporting also. If you want to report the cases of training and workshops or human right awareness campaign, you may face problem that may be ignored by your organization because it is private media is highly commercialized media. Now the lack of financial resources, we all know that in many cases human rights violations needs a long and very deep investigation, but that requires money also, that requires resources also. So lack of resources is also a challenge for human rights reporting. Poor condition of stringers, human rights violation cases mostly in conflict zones and remote areas. Stringers are the main source of news in rural and remote areas. Stringers are working in very pathetic, very poor condition, very less payment, not trained, even work without identity card, lack of human rights literacy. Lack of human rights literacy, I want to raise this issue that because this challenge is not only with the stringers, that is with the full-time reporters also. They are not aware of the human rights, many aspects of human rights. So human rights literacy is required not only for the stringers, but the full-time reporters also. And the last is complex situation. If you see the human rights violation cases, they are complex. They have complex military, political and diplomatic background. It is used as a propaganda tool also. I discussed earlier also that the human rights violation are used as a tool, propaganda tool in international politics also. So we must understand, we must verify those issues twice, thrice from different sources, because human rights, especially human rights violation issues, have complex background. Now it's a time to conclude. In this video lecture, we discussed definition of human rights reporting, importance of human rights reporting, sources for human rights reporting, and challenges of human rights reporting. I hope you found this lecture useful for you. Thanks for watching.